the short man who conquered Europe with spreadsheets, and why your government uses his playbook. Before we start, answer me this. What's the most dangerous weapon ever created? Nuclear bombs, machine guns, Twitter? Wrong. It's a currency people actually trust. And I'm about to show you how one 5'6" Corsican used it to bend half of Europe to his will, then lost everything the moment he forgot how money actually works. Stay with me. By the end, you'll understand why your government is more terrified of inflation than invasion, and why Napoleon's biggest mistake is the same one being repeated right now. Listen up, history-challenged humans. I've spent 2 centuries, yes, I'm that old, don't question panda biology, watching you people worship Napoleon Bonaparte for completely wrong reasons. You think he conquered Europe because he was brilliant at war? Please. I've seen better tactics at a Black Friday sale. Here's what actually happened. Napoleon didn't conquer Europe with steel alone. He did it with signatures, seal wax, and balance sheets that made his enemies weep. Behind every artillery thunder was something quieter but deadlier. Treasury officials, notaries, bankers, and clerks moving numbers like generals moved regiments. You were sold the battlefield genius myth, the improbable victories. The hand and waistcoat pose every dictator since has copied. That's marketing, and it worked beautifully on your textbooks. The truth? Napoleon rewired France's money and understood what kings before him didn't. A state can outfight enemies for a season, but it can only outlast them if it outfinances them. This is the story you were never taught. How a young Corsican inherited a ruined treasury after a revolution, and rebuilt a financial system strong enough to fuel 15 years of war, law, and modernization, then watched it collapse when he ignored his own lessons. Buckle up, this gets expensive. France in 1799, a gorgeous disaster picture. France at the 18th century's end, a wreck in elegant clothing. The monarchy had fallen under its own debts after decades of borrowing for wars and court luxuries, while running a tax system that exempted the rich and crushed the poor. When revolution detonated in 1789, it toppled the political structure but not the arithmetic. The debt remained, hungry and patient. The new regime tried an emergency fix, paper notes called Assignats, supposedly backed by confiscated church lands. At first it felt like magic, liquidity without pain, print your way to prosperity. Sorry, I choke every time I hear that logic. Because you know what happened next, right? Inflation without brakes. By the mid-1790s, prices exploded, confidence imploded, trade choked on distrust. Armies marched in wooden shoes because the treasury couldn't afford leather. Creditors demanded metal, not promises. France had revolutionary vision but no monetary spine. Enter the Corsican with a calculator. Napoleon walks into this chaos in 1799 as first consul. He's 29, barely old enough to rent a car in your America. A soldier by training, but a systems thinker by instinct. He sees what must come first: credibility. Before you command an army, you must command a currency. So he does something radical for a nation still hot from revolution. He creates a bank. Not the old aristocratic fountain of privilege, but a hybrid machine, built to serve state stability and economic oxygen. In 1800, he charters the Banque de France. Private investors put up capital. The state grants privileges and direction. That mix is deliberate. Purely public money risked politicized printing. Purely private finance risked captured oligarchy. The new bank would discount commercial bills, stabilize payments, and, crucially, issue banknotes under strict limits. Strict limits. The message to merchants and workers was simple: your money will clear, your wages will spend. Confidence needs anchors, not speeches. Napoleon provides 2 anchors. First, he rebuilds the treasury into a professional organism, elevating Nicolas François Mollien to manage the public purse with discipline France hadn't seen in generations. Cash flows centralize, arrears get cataloged and cut. The state stops improvising and starts accounting. Second, he gives France new money with a measurable soul. In 1803, the Franc Germinal is defined against fixed weights of silver and gold. After years of paper mirages, the unit of account becomes a unit of reality again. This wasn't fashion, it was a social contract. Baker, soldier, supplier, all needed to believe tomorrow's coin meant the same as today's. The Franc Germinal did that. Money needs muscle, the tax revolution, but money is only as strong as the taxes behind it. Napoleon knows the Bourbon system of farming taxes to private collectors bred corruption and resentment. He kills it. The state will collect its own revenues. Four pillars get tightened: land contribution, personal and movable levy, patent on professions, and excises later grouped as reunited duties. Inspectors carry notebooks, not bribe bags. Cadastres, detailed land registers, expand so assessments rest on measured acres, not negotiated influence. In 1807, he creates the Cour des Comptes, a supreme audit court, tracking public money with campaign-level rigor. Audit isn't an afterthought, it's the nervous system of trust. War as a business model. With the fiscal floor rebuilt, Napoleon turns to financing continuous war without recreating monarchy's ruin. Here's where he's most modern. He treats war like a cash-flowing enterprise. Victories aren't just strategic wins, they're revenue events. Indemnities get levied on defeated states. Requisitions of grain, horses, uniforms, medals, all priced and booked. Occupied territories provision the troops occupying them. The treasury at home is spared worst spikes because the front pays the front. When Prussia breaks after Jena in 1806, contributions pour in. After Tilsit treaties in 1807, more money flows from the vanquished. The empire becomes self-funding, so long as it keeps winning. Catch that last part, we'll return to it. He multiplies revenue channels. In 1803, sells Louisiana to the United States for $15 million. Preferring cash in hand and British denial to dreams of a colony he can't defend. He turns conquered chaos into taxable order. The code gets imposed, customs restored, local treasuries scheduled. He even imagines credit for enterprise, coaxing municipal savings banks into existence. So commerce breathes while armies march. The empire's economy isn't afterthought, it's the second front. The Continental System, when coercion meets economics, but every system has a stress test. For Napoleon, it's water, the one thing he can't command. He tries strangling Britain with the Continental System, a vast economic blockade closing European ports to British goods in 1806. On paper, strategic finance, deny enemy trade revenues, starve credit, break will without a shot. In practice, the place where policy meets human incentive and loses. Smuggling becomes industry. Neutral flags become masks. Coastal towns collude to survive. The blockade bleeds allies and fuels resentment, while Britain adapts, rerouting commerce and innovating finance to ride out the storm. Harbors that hummed go silent. Prices bend wrong. A weapon meant to suffocate enemies bruises friends. He adjusts by tightening control, more customs men, seizures, fines. The blockade bleeds allies and fuels resentment, while Britain adapts, rerouting commerce and innovating finance to ride out the storm. Harbors that hummed go silent, prices bend wrong. A weapon meant to suffocate enemies bruises friends. He adjusts by tightening control, more customs men, seizures, fines. Here's the first lesson for every leader admiring Napoleon's brilliance. Coercion can extend policy. It cannot replace economics. A continent won't stay poor on purpose indefinitely. Markets find cracks. The state spends treasure plugging them. More energy poured into prevention makes the system more brittle. Napoleon learns this in invoices long before admitting it in proclamations. 1812. When math kills empires. For a time, victories paper overstrain. Austerlitz pays for a year, Wagram buys another, but arithmetic is turning. Truth comes with snow. The Russian campaign in 1812 isn't just military catastrophe, it's a balance sheet killer. Lost men aren't just uniforms and muskets, they're the Republic's most expensive line item, trained human capital. Horse carcasses and drifts aren't just tragedy, they're collapse of mobility the treasury fed for a decade. Prepositioned supplies torched on retreat. The contribution model flips overnight. Instead of front paying front, the center must drain itself, rebuilding what ice destroyed. Creditors who race to roll notes now hesitate. Even the best administered treasury can't fund a war that eats faster than any tax code feeds. And yet, this is essential. The edifice he built doesn't vanish with him. When Paris falls in 1814 and the emperor gets sent away, the bank remains. The Franc Germinal stands. The audit court keeps counting. Tax collectors keep walking routes. France has been given a financial spine, the legacy. You're living in Napoleon's world. That's Napoleon's deeper legacy, why we still live with his shadow. He didn't merely seize Europe, he standardized a nation. He proved law, money, and administration could fuse into a durable state engine outlasting its assembler. Look deeper and his era reads like a manual for modernity. Central bank with private shareholders and public aims. Stable currency tied to metal weights people trust. Tax system broad, knowable, internally collected. Treasury run by professionals, not patrons. Sober recognition that war, brilliantly executed or not, is financial business that bankrupts even the strong if not matched by peace that pays. The empire is extraordinary precisely because it's ordinary in components. No magic instability, only structure, enforcement, and incentives aligned with reality. But stop here and you miss the warning baked into triumph. Systems built on constant external revenue, indemnities, requisitions, plunder, or today's easier cousin, rolling deficits justified by growth, share hidden risk. They condition states to need what victory or momentum provides. They build fixed costs feeling normal, bigger armies, larger bureaucracies, thicker roads, grander programs. Then comes shock, winter, war, recession, crisis. The state discovers the cash engine beneath pageantry can't sustain load. That's when governments reach for tools looking modern but rhyming with past. Aggressive money creation, emergency borrowing, quiet hope that confidence does the rest. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Economic history is the ledger of those choices. What Napoleon got right that you still use. Start with money itself. The Franc Germinal's restraint, defined against silver and gold weights, wasn't ideological, it was psychological. After hallucinatory years of paper dying in hands, France needed an anchor beyond politics. When your unit of account measures something tangible, contracts stabilize, wages mean something, state promises feel real. That credibility lowered borrowing costs. Investors lend at tolerable rates, believing repayment arrives in currency still buying bread. That single design choice lubricated everything from road building to grain trade. Next, administrative nervous system. Collecting taxes directly stretched beyond revenue, it created a map of productive reality. Cadastres taught the state where farms were, how large, who owned them. Audits taught who paid and who didn't. That knowledge was power, not only for extraction but targeted investment. Canals where commerce begged for water, ports where customs could multiply, schools where future clerks and engineers could be made. Money isn't just numbers, it's information. Napoleon's France learned to record it, not guess it. Then law. The Napoleonic Code is taught as legal milestone, not financial one. But property rights, contracts, inheritance rules are credit's oxygen. When merchants know how disputes get judged and heirs know how estates divide, lenders know how collateral realizes. Courtrooms are cash flow machines producing predictable outcomes. Legal standardization reduced friction, keeping regional markets provincial. A lion bill of exchange became intelligible in Antwerp. That's finance disguised as jurisprudence. What he got wrong, that killed him. Even as he hardened France's financial bones, Napoleon built fragilities every modern nation recognizes in its mirror. The Continental System first. Trying to embargo the age's greatest maritime trader without sea mastery forced reliance on coercion, not competitive advantage. It punished his own port economies, pushed trade into shadows, subsidized corruption. More squeeze made smugglers' skills more valuable. Economic war leans on enforcement, commerce leans on consent. When policy tries replacing latter with former, ledgers bleed in ways budgets never predict. Second fragility, strategic finances, addiction to momentum. Victories functioned as forward funding, conditioning planning assumptions to expect tomorrow's contribution. When that revenue stopped, it didn't just dent pride, it cracked the cash cycle. Russian campaign aftermath revealed a treasury superbly organized for normal strain, superbly exposed to extraordinary shocks. Napoleon's genius could compel men to march. It couldn't compel arithmetic to forgive. Why this matters now, bring camera to present, because this isn't museum piece. Napoleon's financial state outlines are today's default operating system. Every major nation runs central banks mixing public aims with private channels. Every serious economy understands currency credibility silently determines borrowing costs, growth, geopolitical reach. Every finance minister knows competent tax administration, credible audits, predictable property law do more for investment than slogans. And every government tempted by endless stimulus or forever wars hits the same wall. Math, patience, trust have limits. Modern leaders have tools Napoleon lacked: fiat currencies unbound from metal, instantaneous debt markets soaking up trillions. Those tools stabilize shocks that would have flattened 19th century states, but they invite different temptation, treating extraordinary as normal. Emergency money creation becomes routine, deficits become permanent investments, security commitments metastasize, states grow into structures assuming tomorrow's victory or growth funds today's promises. And when it doesn't, the quiet machinery we admire in Napoleon's France makes a different sound. Not orders hum, but pressures hiss. What you should actually do. So, what should you carry away beyond history? First, financial education isn't hobby, it's citizenship. Understanding how currency credibility lowers borrowing costs lets you read central bank announcements and hear consequences, not words. Understanding how tax administration maps economies lets you spot when reform codes for opacity. Understanding how law is credit skeleton shows why sudden rule changes scare capital away. Economic history isn't dusty dates. It's a manual for recognizing power, where it sits, how it moves, who pays when it shifts. Second, real wealth exceeds rising charts. Napoleon's story shows durable prosperity came from structure, money people trusted, taxes people understood, courts people believed, accounts people could audit. Those ingredients outlive parades, the illusions, paper miracles, blockade fantasies, victory as permanent revenue, all cracked under stress. Your life is smaller than a state, but principle scales. Build finances on cash flows you control, skills holding demand, assets making sense under tight money, not just loose. Speculation fills feasts, structure fills winters. Third, money and power remain married. Napoleon grasped coins and cannonballs serve the same master policy. When financial systems serve plans, plans move mountains. When plans ignore financial limits, mountains slide back. Look around. Sanctions turn banking rails into battlefields. Interest rate moves decide which nations breathe, which gasp. Currency credibility once lost isn't restored by decree. Rulers remembering this stay. Ones forgetting get remembered as warnings. If there's a final image worth keeping, it's this: a ledger lying open beside a map. Napoleon spent his life with both. When columns and contours matched, he was unstoppable. When parchment lines overruled book lines, defeat was already marching. History doesn't repeat, but if you don't understand it, it'll crush you all the same. If this gave you new perspective, hit subscribe. History has answers. I'll show you where to look. Winston out.